Hello humans, it's just Martine and welcome to another week where I try to read books from my shelves. Some context, if you're unfamiliar with me and my channel, I go to grad school, so I do not live at home most of the time, but most of my books live here at home. I therefore don't get to spend a lot of time around my entire book collection, and so when I am home, I try to do my best to read through as much of my own TBR as possible. Last week, I filmed a vlog, and it went horribly wrong because I ended up adding 75 books to my library in total instead of subtracting books. And basically the whole goal for this week is not to read a necessarily impressive amount of books from my shelves, but just to have a better outcome than last week's vlog. More specifically, I would love a net negative week, or at least a net neutral week, instead of a net way positive week of books added to my collection. So that's the goal. It is Monday, and I'll first catch you up on the owned book that I was working on through the end of the last vlog, which is this definitive space opera anthology, Infinite Stars, Dark Frontiers. There is another Infinite Stars book that is not Dark Frontiers, so this is actually the second anthology in this collection by the same editor. I'm about 40% of the way into this book, and I've found some stories that I really love that make me want to check out other authors and series that I've never tried before, and some that have warned me to stay far away from other series. This is just a good taste test exploration of a bunch of really famous authors and series in the space opera genre, which is one of my favorites. Personally, I love a good sci-fi, and actually two of my favorite authors have had stories that I read last week in this anthology, so clearly winning. It is going to take a lot of my reading time this week to finish this, though, because for some reason there are so many words on each page, and there are also so many pages in this book. My belief that I will accomplish much more than this week, it's not that high. I don't have that much faith in myself, especially since I'm doing reading for other projects outside of this video. Just like last week, I will count books that I read for other videos, but that are physical owned books, as part of my total this week. So for example, I'm halfway through a TBR crime book that's a physical owned book, and when I finish that, although I won't tell you about my reaction to the book in this vlog, I will tell you, hey, I finished an owned book. Most of my owned books last week were for other video projects instead of for this one. And most of what I did in this vlog last week was just haul a bunch of books. So this week we're going to do better than that. I'm going to make progress on this one, and I'll let you know if I also pick up anything else. I'm really hoping to, but again, it's kind of a crazy week. I already have a ton to read, and last week was my more free week. It was my week off of work completely, not answering emails or Teams messages or anything. This week I am technically on the clock, as it were. I don't make an hourly wage, so that's kind of a false notion, but the point is I am working. So like I worked all morning instead of reading, which like go me, but also sad for my owned books. You know, I'll let you know what happens. Why, hello there. Happy Tuesday. You are seeing this right, and so am I. I did get new glasses. If my face looks different, that's why. Updates on the reading front. I only read 2 of these stories from Infinite Stars yesterday because I was focused on finishing a TBR crime book. But the good news was both of those were stories that I really enjoyed, and they were now from series that I want to try out in the future. The first one was from the Liaden series. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. And then the second was from the Dream Park series, which is kind of like a sci-fi space opera Disney World situation, which obviously I enjoyed. And it doesn't really matter to me if the plots of these stories are different or detached from the plots that I would read when I try out these other books and series. It's mainly just a test of like, do I like this author or author's writing style? So the ones that I like are the ones that are able to keep my attention, that the writing jives for me. And sometimes it's because I think the world is interesting and I want to read more about it, but I'm very aware of the fact that like people just plucked a story, sometimes related to their universe, sometimes not. I'm even noting authors whose like stories in general I really liked, even if it's not from a particular series, so that I can find their other work, because I think one of the most important things for me in finding new authors to love is finding writing styles that really work for me. So this is just a really good experiment in that. It's hard to put into words the difference between the writing that is working for me and the writing that is not, but we've all been there. We know what that feels like. And I'm a little conflicted because obviously I want to read more than this for this vlog, But then I also don't really want to just read something quick and short, because then I'm just left with a lot of long books on my shelf. Then again, this is a long book and I'm getting it off my shelf, so like, I don't know. The good news is I only have one more TBR crime book that is a physical owned book for this episode, and so after I finish that, I'll feel more free to read physical owned books for my shelves. The problem is I'm leaving home soon. I'm conflicted and I don't know what to do. There are just so many books that I always want to read all at once, and it's hard to deal with that fact. That is a big burden in my life. I'm sure it's one many, if not most of you can relate to. Thinking about it, if I were to pick another owned physical book to start, let's think about what genres I'm reading right now. I'm obviously reading sci-fi for this. I also have a mystery on the go. I have a classic on the go. I'm going to have a historical fiction when I start that physical TBR crime book. Is that all that I'm reading? It might be. So I have fantasy open because I finished a fantasy book yesterday. And I have like romance contemporary open because I don't think I'm reading anything for that. So I think those are my two big options. And then obviously nonfiction, but I don't want to read another nonfiction right now. I kind of wish I wasn't reading another mystery, because clearly with my problem last week, I now have so many mysteries to get through. And I already had a lot of mysteries on my shelves / in boxes. I think maybe fantasy. And then I'm feeling conflicted about that because there are some books that if I read that, it would be making progress in a series that eventually I think I want to get rid of my copy of that series, but I have the whole thing. So it'd be nice to actually clear through those. And they're like middle grade YA, so they read pretty quickly, but they're fairly long. So it would free up like a pretty substantial amount of space on my shelves without being something that reads this slowly. But I also don't want to read those right now. Like, am not in the mood for them. And I'm not sure that I'll be in the mood for them. I still want to read them though to finish the series. I just have to be in a place where I can like buckle down and get myself to read them. But I feel like because of all the things I'm reading for TBR crime right now, I am buckling down and making myself read some things. So like, I want something that feels more like the vibe that I want right now, but also what vibe do I want? You can see my conundrum, I think. So why don't I do this? I'm going to go look at my shelves. I'm going to pull a couple of options and maybe I'll talk through them with you. Maybe at the end of that clip, I'll choose a book to start reading, and maybe I won't, but let's at least think about our options. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have done that because now there are books all over the place, but I pulled out a couple of options. I only pulled out 2 fantasy options. I didn't actually have that many, which makes sense because fantasy is like one of my least favorite genres, so I don't usually buy it. This first one I think is a YA fantasy, and I think it involves a gender diverse character, so that's on the table. It's called The Brilliant Death, and it's got pretty big words on the page. Like, not huge, but bigger than infinite stars, so that's something. And then the other fantasy option I have is The Sword by Brian Litfin, which has a lot more words on the page, and the pages are quite tall. It's the first book in a trilogy. It's set 400 years from now. Okay, so it seems like a sci-fi fantasy twist because a deadly virus and nuclear war destroyed the modern world, and then those people who survived returned to a medieval-like way of living, like feudal kingdoms and everything. I had totally forgotten that. This piques my interest more than I thought it would a second ago when I picked it out. And then the rest are like contemporary-ish. This one, Trinkets, is a YA. I'm not sure that you'd fully classify it as a contemporary because it involves like a thief thing. Like the tagline is "May the best thief win," so I think there's like a thief competition. This would be a quick read, and it's kind of been staring me down because it used to live in my sister's room and she dropped it off here, and so I'm like, maybe I should just address it right off the bat. I have a couple other options. I have Dog Days. This one seems pretty heartfelt. There are 3 main characters. They're all going through different things. There's like a grumpy old man character, a character with OCD, and then a character living in a women's shelter. This would be good if I want something hard-hitting, which I'm not sure that I do. And then I have First Comes Love by Emily Griffin. This is about sisters and like a family tragedy. Then I have The Shore. This one feels vibes-wise kind of right because it's about people who live year-round at the beach, like a family that lives year-round at the beach, and that feels correct for this time of year. There's loss, the pressure of running a small town business, the unknowability of the future, all those things. But again, vibes-wise, this might be the best option. Getting Away with It by Julie Cohen, which is like a life swap twin story. And although it looks kind of chunky, there's like barely any words on each page, so I feel like I could fly through this one, which would feel good. And then I have more hardcover contemporaries. The first is The Unsinkable Greta James. I forget what this is about. I just know I got it at the Dollar Tree, and when I saw it, I was like, I've seen that book before. Oh, it's about a woman who reconnects with her father. That's right. Lots of family sagas here, and I did not pull all of the family sagas I have. I have so many. I just honestly picked the ones that piqued my interest the most right now based off of looks. And then I have what I think is a pretty classic romance, Slingshot, that involves a Florida boarding school, which, like, I like books set in my state. I think that's interesting. And then I like books set at boarding schools. I think maybe it's an enemies to lovers situation. So, okay. After revisiting all their synopses, because honestly, I pulled them all based off of looks, and now I have to decide what to read. I think I'm not going to read The Unsinkable Greta James. I kind of don't want to read Getting Away with It, but at the same time, I know I could fly through it, and then I'd have this like relatively large book off of my shelves, which would feel good. So that's a maybe. Slingshot, I'm putting in the yes category. Same with The Shore. I think First Comes Love is a maybe. Dog Days is a no right now. Trinkets is another yes option. And then my two maybe fantasy books. The Sword, I don't know, it seemed interesting. I feel like if I picked a shorter book first, like one I could get through faster, I would have a better chance of getting to another one of these later in the vlog if I want to. So that's something to keep in mind. So I'm going to go no for these two. Ironically, they look kind of similar in that they have multiple shades of the same colors on the covers. That's weird. So that's not the vibe right now, I guess. Looking at the books that I've been reading recently for my collection, I've read more paperbacks. So I'm going to use this as a chance to address a hardcover book is the decision I'm making, which brings me down to either Trinkets or Slingshot. And I think based on the premise right now, I'm going to go with Slingshot. This has not been in my collection very long. It was a 2021 book, so I probably got it a year or two after that. This is the move. Decision made. Happy Wednesday. I ventured out of the cave that is my room downstairs because currently no other humans are home. Ernie is here. Maybe I'll hold him up in a minute because then he'll get like antsy if I do that and then try to put him down. The point is, Ernie and I are here, and I wanted to give you some updates about my reading. First, of course, our good friend Infinite Stars Dark Frontiers. I read 3 stories in this yesterday, which took 2 hours of reading, so good job me. The first was a really long one that I didn't like, so that was hard. The second was a really long one that I loved. Let's see, that one was A Special Kind of Morning by Gardner Dezois. I don't know how you pronounce his name. He's usually an editor, like was a prolific editor, won a lot of Hugo editing awards or whatever, but this was one of his short stories, more like novellas. He's also won a lot of awards for this one, and I think those are well earned because I really enjoyed it. This guy is telling this other guy, basically, about his past in this kind of armed conflict, and I think it had lots of interesting things to say about war and revolution because, like, a lot of the big ideas is like how terrible the war gets by the end, where like everybody just wants it to be done, whereas like you start this conflict saying like we'll do anything to achieve these ends, and then when you do anything you're like kind of regret that, just wish it was over. But it was really well written, captivating, kind of seamless world building, even though there was like a lot going on. But no, I just really liked it. And then the third one that I read, didn't like as much, but it wasn't 40 pages. So that was something. This morning I've started my first one for the day, and so far I'm really enjoying that one. And then for Slingshot, I read the first 50 pages. This is actually a YA, which I should have known because it takes place at boarding school. But anyway, pretty basic setup. I will say so far, I think our main character is actually written pretty true to form. She's 15 and she sounds like it. One of the problems that I often have with YA books is that the teens sound more mature than they should. I know there are mature teens. I was a pretty serious teenager myself. Sometimes teenagers are just a little unhinged, and our main character in this book is unhinged. And I know sometimes in the past when I've read a teenager that actually reads like a teenager, people have been like, they read too young. But like, they are young. She's 15. So like, we start off her book and she's crying in a bathroom because she found out that the teacher that she thought was like her soulmate actually has a fiance. He absolutely did nothing to lead her on. Like, she's detailing all the reasons she thinks they're soulmates, and it's silly things. Like, he drew smiley faces on her tests, and I'm like, yeah, he sounds like a teacher. It was a very silly, like, teenage girl thing to do, but she's feeling some big feelings about it, and so one day she doesn't go to that teacher's class because she's, like, embarrassed, and she ends up saving this guy. He's new to the school. Some of the other guys are after him, and she happens to have a slingshot that she's had like her whole life, and she uses it to kind of fight back against the guys that are bullying him, and that ends up getting both of them in trouble. So they're stuck with not detention necessarily, but they do have to clean the dining hall after dinner every night for the next couple weeks. So they're kind of forced together, and she wants absolutely nothing to do with him. And meanwhile, he's just trying to be friendly, and she's just kind of being a jerk about it, but that's okay. So I'm interested to see where it goes from here. It's definitely a fast read. Like, those 50 pages flew. I read for like a little over 3 hours yesterday. And like I said, 2 of those hours were to Infinite Stars Dark Frontiers, and then some of that time was also to 12 TBR's books and TBR crime books and stuff. So things are moving right along. I did officially book my ticket to leave on Monday, so now it's really hitting me that I have to finish everything by the end of Sunday. I believe in myself, but that does mean that I have to get reading. Where'd he go? Oh, hey, buddy. That means right now I'll show you Ernie before I get to reading. He's a little fuzzy. His hair has grown out a little bit, but he's still his usual fun-loving self. So Ernie and I are going to sit and read, and hopefully we'll make some good progress. Isn't that right, bud? Yes. Thanks for being a good guest star, Ernest. Hey, howdy, hey. Happy Friday. Yes, I'm aware I have skipped a day. Okay, so here's the deal. I did my regular reading on Wednesday, and I made some pretty good progress. I got to the point where I had like 3 hours left of Infinite Stars Dark Frontiers. I made it to page 100 of Slingshot, and I made some progress in my TBR crime book. Then Thursday happened, and Thursday, I think I read less than 30 minutes in the whole day, and not all of it was for my physical reads either. I spent lots of time with friends and talking to other people who are in town, who I only get to talk to really when I'm in town. So that was really nice, but it means I got no reading done. And so I have today, Saturday, and Sunday to finish all my reads, and I'm starting to feel the pressure, which is why this morning I sat down. I did not actually sit down. I've been pacing while I've been reading. And I read the last 3 hours of Infinite Stars Dark Frontiers. And I'm giving this 4 stars. I really enjoyed this collection. Obviously, some stories more than others. I have a list of like 13 series and or authors that I want to check out other work by. I especially think I had like pretty good luck with the last set of stories, because since I've talked to you last, I feel like I've added at least 5 to the list. So that's exciting. I really liked this as a way to like introduce me to authors that I'll have a potential to really love, and series that I'll have a potential to really love. Even though it did take me 12 and a half hours of reading to get through this monstrosity, I would say it was worth it. It was especially worth it because I know for a fact that I got this from the Dollar Tree for $1.25 however long ago I acquired it. So the fact that it could introduce me to a bunch of authors that I think I'll have the potential to enjoy more of in the future is great, and that I enjoyed right now is awesome. So 4 stars. I'm going to keep this in my collection. I do think it would be kind of cool. Not only I can loan this to other people if they want to try different series, but also because if I do try these series, or more like when, if I get really into them, I can then look back on these stories and appreciate them in a different way than I could when reading it and being introduced to the series and the universe for the first time. My next priority has to be making a bunch of progress in my TBR crime book, because that I have like over 5 hours left of. Oops. And then I will make some progress in Slingshot. I'd love to get to at least the halfway mark of this today, which shouldn't take much reading. I only have like 2 hours and 40 minutes left in this, even though I'm less than halfway through at this point. So hopefully that will be achievable, but it is looking less and less like I will be able to pick another book to start for this, which is fine. Right now I'm doing some sprints with Danielle and just trying to get as much as I can done today, since like less people are home today than they will be during the weekend, although I'm going to spend some quality time with my mom later this afternoon since she's got a pretty busy weekend lined up in front of her. So other than that though, I'll be reading. I do need to edit a video, but I at least imported the footage this morning, so I've gotten a start, and it's not too long. I think I have like 20 minutes of raw footage, or like 23, which is not much. I've had longer recently. That's the plan for the day. I can do this. Happy Sunday. I have managed to finish all the physical books that I needed to read before leaving. I finished the one for TBR Crime, and I just filmed my review for that. So now I'm here to talk to you about Slingshot, because I just finished this a couple minutes ago. And this one just makes me laugh. I'm giving this book 4 stars, which is a little wild because there were some things I don't think you're supposed to like in this book and that I didn't. And so in essence, this whole thing was just so unhinged. But in that way, I felt like the voice was done so well. Like the main character sounded like no other character that I've read in my life, and yet definitely seemed like a teenager. There was a quote in the book from a secondary character that I think kind of perfectly describes everything that happens in this book and my thoughts on it perfectly. So I'll just read you this quote. It says, "The only actual problem I can see here is that you're a couple of half-baked morons." And that's the truth of the matter, because we're following these characters, and I think I gave you the basic premise, boarding school, whatever. These two end up starting to talk. He kind of inserts himself into her life, and she's like, "Go away, I don't want you here." Because that's kind of her attitude about everybody. And, then they fall in love. And it is the messiest, weirdest YA relationship I've ever read. There is one scene that I would consider to be like a big climactic scene in the book. I was literally laughing out loud and saying to myself, what is happening? The main character would just say things. She would just say things. And I was like, why are you saying that out loud? She was just such a weirdo. And she was also like not a great person. She was a complete disaster, not nice, which she acknowledged. She was like, I'm not a nice person. And I was like, yeah, you're not, really, just an absolute wreck. And I think that's what made me enjoy the book so much, is because the author really committed to that. And, there was some growth by the end in certain ways, but also she was kind of just like who she was, but she had gone through this huge experience. It was as messy as adolescence actually is. Because like I said earlier in this vlog, we're following a 15-year-old girl, and it shows. It shows. I don't even know what to say about this book. Like, we go from the beginning where she's in love with her teacher, and then it falls apart, and then she has her relationship with Wade. That's the main male character in this book. And even by the end, when she's reflecting on like her feelings at the beginning of the book, I don't know. It's just, the whole thing is bonkers. There's no better way to describe it. It's absolutely bonkers. If you want an unlikable main character who is absolutely a teenager, who says the most messed up stuff and just says and does whatever she wants, I recommend this book to you. If you find weird characters fascinating, I recommend this book to you. If you want a cute YA contemporary romance, don't read this book. This book almost felt like it was from the perspective of Margot from Paper Towns by John Green, except if Margot was like even more unhinged. And let's just acknowledge, if you have read Paper Towns, that Margot is unhinged. She does some things that are pretty blatantly unhinged on page, but then we're not around her for a great portion of the story after she has disappeared. And I don't know, it was just similar energy with this main character. What's her name? Grace. Totally normal name, totally bonkers character. It looks like it should be cute. It's just an absolutely adolescent disaster. And I could not look away. I did not want to look away. I thought it was kind of genius and kind of terrible all in the same breath. I can see why some people would not like it if they went in wanting one thing, because it absolutely does not deliver that. But I found this book just so interesting. And these characters, again, were unlike any other characters I've read, really. So that's another book off my shelf. In this video, I have read 2 books that I told you about, and then 1 book for TBR Crime. So I read 3 books from my shelves, and I hauled 0 books. Big win after last week. So this week, my number is -3. Thank goodness. With that, I need to get packing, so I'm going to end this vlog here. If you liked it, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up and comment down below. Have you read a book with a really unhinged character who will just say things? I want to hear about it. And how do you feel about unlikable characters? And subscribe for more bookish and college lifestyle content. And until next time, bye humans, bye.